Welcome. Really glad you're here. We're going to continue today in The Wizard of Oz with Chapter 3, How Dorothy Saved the Scarecrow. When Dorothy was left alone, she began to feel hungry. So she went into the cupboard and cut herself some bread, and she spread some butter on it. She gave some to Toto, and taking a pail down from the shelf, she carried it to the little brook and filled it with clear, sparkling water. Toto ran over to the trees and began to bark at the birds that were sitting there. Dorothy went to get him and saw such delicious fruit hanging from the branches that she gathered some of it, finding it just what she wanted to help out her breakfast. Then she went back to the house, and having helped herself and Toto to a good drink of cool, clear water, she set about making ready for the journey to the City of Emeralds. Dorothy had only one other dress, but that happened to be clean and was hanging on a peg beside her bed. It was gingham with checks of white and blue, and although the blue was somewhat faded with many washings, it was still a pretty dress. The girl washed herself carefully, dressed herself in the clean gingham, and tied her pink sunbonnet on her head. She took a little basket and filled it with bread from the cupboard, laying a little white cloth over the top. Then she looked down at her feet and noticed how old and worn her shoes were. "They will surely never do for a long journey, Toto," she said, and Toto looked up into her face with his little black eyes and wagged his tail to show he knew what she meant. At that moment, Dorothy saw lying on the table the silver shoes that had belonged to the Wicked Witch of the East. "I wonder if they will fit me," she said to Toto. "They would be just the thing to take a long walk in, because they will not wear out." She took off her old leather shoes and tried on the silver ones, which fit her as well as if they had been made for her. Finally, she picked up her basket. "Come along, Toto," she said. "We will go to the Emerald City and ask the Great Oz how to get back to Kansas again." She closed the door and locked it and put the key carefully in the pocket of her dress. And so, with Toto trotting along soberly behind her, she started on her journey. There were several roads nearby, but it did not take her long to find the one that was paved with yellow brick. Within a short time, she was walking briskly toward the Emerald City, her silver shoes tinkling merrily on the hard yellow roadbed. The sun shone bright, and the birds sang sweet, and Dorothy did not feel nearly as bad as you might think a little girl who had been suddenly whisked away from her own country and set down in the midst of a strange land. She was surprised, as she walked along, to see how pretty the country was about her. There were neat fences, and all along the sides of the road, painted a dainty blue color, and beyond them were fields of grain and vegetables in abundance. Evidently, the Munchkins were good farmers and able to raise large crops. Once in a while, she would pass by a house, and the people would come out to look at her and bow low as she went by. Everyone knew she had been the means of destroying the Wicked Witch and setting them free from bondage. The houses of the Munchkins were odd-looking dwellings, for each was round with a big dome on top. All were painted blue, for in this country of the East, blue was the favorite color. Towards evening, when Dorothy was tired with her long walk and began to wonder where she should pass the night, she came to a house rather larger than the rest. On the green lawn before it, many men and women were dancing. 5 little fiddlers played as loudly as possible, and the people were laughing and singing, while a great big table nearby was loaded with delicious fruits and nuts, pies and cakes, and many other good things to eat. The people greeted Dorothy kindly and invited her to supper and to pass the night with them. This was the home of some of the richest Munchkins in the land, and his friends were gathered with him to celebrate their freedom from the bondage of the Wicked Witch. Dorothy ate a hearty supper and was waited upon by the rich Munchkin himself, whose name was Boq. Then she sat down upon a settee and watched the people dance. When Boq saw her silver shoes, he said, "You must be a great sorceress." "Why?" said the little girl. "Because you wear silver shoes, and you have killed the Wicked Witch, And besides, you have white in your frock, and only witches and sorceresses wear white. My dress is blue and white checked, said Dorothy, smoothing out the wrinkles in it. It is very kind of you to wear that, said Bock. Blue is the color of the Munchkins, and white is the witch color, so we know you are a friendly witch. Dorothy did not know what to say to all of this, for all the people seemed to think that she was a witch, and she knew very well she was only an ordinary little girl who had come by chance of a cyclone to this strange land. When she had grown tired of watching the dancing, Bock led her into the house, where he gave her a room with a pretty bed in it. The sheets were made of blue cloth, and Dorothy slept soundly in them until morning, with Toto curled up on the blue rug beside her. She ate a hearty breakfast and watched a wee Munchkin baby, and played with Toto and pulled his tail, and the baby pulled Toto's tail and played with him. That's what I meant to say. And crowed and laughed in a way that greatly amused Dorothy. Toto was a fine curiosity for all the people, for they had never seen a dog before. How far is it to the Emerald City? The little girl asked. I do not know, said Bock gravely. I have never been there. It is better for people to keep away from the city of Oz, unless they have business with him. But it is a long way to the Emerald City, and it will take you many days. The country here is rich and pleasant, but you must pass through rough and dangerous places before you reach the end of your journey. This worried Dorothy a little, but she knew that only the great Oz could get her back to Kansas again, so she bravely resolved not to turn back. She bade her friends goodbye, and again started on the road of yellow brick. When she had gone several miles, she thought she should stop to rest, and so she climbed to the top of a fence beside the road and sat down. There was a great cornfield beyond the fence, and not far away she saw a scarecrow placed high on a pole to keep the birds from the ripe corn. Dorothy leaned her chin upon her hand and gazed thoughtfully at the scarecrow. Its head was a small sack stuffed with straw, with eyes, nose, and mouth painted on to represent a face. An old pointed blue hat that had belonged to some Munchkin was perched on top of his head, and the rest of the figure was a blue set of clothes stuffed with straw, worn and faded. On the feet were some old boots with blue tops, such as everyone in Munchkinland wore. And the figure was raised above the stalks of corn by a pole stuck up his back. While Dorothy was looking earnestly into the queer painted face of the scarecrow, she was surprised to see one of the eyes slowly wink at her. She thought she must be mistaken at first, for none of the other scarecrows in Kansas ever wink. But presently the figure nodded its head to her in a friendly way. So she climbed down from the fence and walked up to it with Toto as he ran around the pole and barked. Good day, said the scarecrow in a rather husky voice. Did you speak? The little girl said in wonder. Certainly, answered the scarecrow. How do you do? Well, I'm pretty well, thank you, replied Dorothy politely. How do you do? I'm not feeling very well, said the scarecrow with a smile. It is very tedious being perched up here night and day to scare away crows. Can't you get down? No, I have this pole stuck up my back. If you would be so pleased, kindly, to take away the pole, I should be greatly obligated and obliged to you. Dorothy reached up both arms and lifted the figure off the pole, because being stuffed with straw, he wasn't terribly heavy. Thank you very much, said the scarecrow when he had been set down on the ground. I feel like a new man. Dorothy was puzzled at this because it sounded weird to hear a stuffed man speak and to see him bow and walk along beside her. Who are you? Asked the scarecrow when he had stretched himself and yawned. And where are you going? My name is Dorothy, said the little girl. I am going to the Emerald City to ask the great Oz to send me back to Kansas. Where is the Emerald City? He inquired. And who is Oz? Well, don't you know? She returned in surprise. No, indeed. I don't know anything. You see, I am stuffed. I have no brains at all." "Oh," said Dorothy, "I'm awfully sorry for you." "Do you think," he asked, "if I go to the Emerald City, the great Oz would perhaps give me some brains?" "I cannot tell," she returned, "but you may come with me if you'd like. If Oz will not give you any brains, then you'll be no worse off than you are now." "Well, that's true," said the Scarecrow. "You see," he continued confidently, "I don't mind my legs and arms and body being stuffed because I cannot get hurt. If anyone steps on my toes or sticks a pin into me, doesn't matter. I can't feel it. But I do not want people to call me a fool. And if my head stays stuffed with straw instead of brains, like yours is, how am I ever to know anything?" "I understand how you feel," said the little girl, who was really sorry for him. "If you will come with me, I'll ask Oz to do what he can for you." "Thank you," he answered gratefully. They walked back to the road. Dorothy helped him over the fence, and they started along the path of yellow brick for the Emerald City. Toto did not like this addition to the party. He smelled around the stuffed man, as he suspected there might be a nest of rats in there somewhere, and he often growled in an unfriendly way towards the Scarecrow. "Don't mind Toto," said Dorothy. "He never bites." "Oh, I'm not afraid," replied the Scarecrow. "He can't hurt the straw. But do let me carry that basket for you. I won't mind it because I can't get tired. I'll tell you a secret," he continued as they walked along. "There's only one thing in the world that I am afraid of." "What is that?" said Dorothy. "The Munchkin farmer that made you?" "No," answered the Scarecrow. "It's a lighted match." Thank you for reading along with me. We shall see how our journey continues from here. And I hope you enjoyed the story. I most certainly enjoy reading it to you. It won't be so long between chapters next time, I promise. Take care. Love you much.